Okay, we're going to go ahead and start the class, and I am going to record the session so that I can send you a copy of it once the training is over. And like I said before, if you have any questions, feel free to ask them as I do check the chat part of the program as we're going through the class. And if you have any questions at all, and you have a microphone connected to your computer, just let me know and I can unmute you so that you can ask any questions that you have. I have it muted only because the system tends to pick up a lot of background noise that's there. So I'm just going to start off with introductions to give you a better idea of who I am, my background, and then I'm just going to go through the people that are registered here just to get an idea of the different types of organizations. So if you haven't done so already, if in the chat part of the GoToMeeting control panel, you could give me your name, the organization that you're with, your title, and an idea of how long it is that you've been using Razor's Edge. Then that helps us a lot kind of gear the class towards to make it more specific to the people who are participating. So my name is Laura Marziali, and I'm a database consultant and trainer specializing in the Razor's Edge. My background is in development. I worked for the Canadian Cancer Society in Toronto and the Canadian Olympic Association in Toronto as well. I always say that the Olympics was a really good training ground for being a consultant because when I worked there, you didn't have a boss and you didn't have a job description. They could put you on teams, and so they would put you on any team where they thought that you might be good at. And so I was on every team that had anything to do with raising money, just because it's a nonprofit, so everyone's short-staffed, and I was backup IT. I don't know how I got that job, but it was really good training because instead of having one specific role at an organization, you kind of learned how you would use a database in relation to all of the different jobs you could have in development, whether it be major gifts and solicitation, whether it be board relations or events or direct mail pieces that are going out. So it was a really good training in that way. Once I left the Olympics, I went to work for Blackbaud as a trainer and consultant, specializing in the Razor's Edge. It's a lot of what it is that we do right now, and we realized really quickly that you can't really train someone on a sample database. We'll be using a sample database today, and you'll kind of see how and why it is that is. It's good for giving you an overview of the program and what you should be able to do in it, but I really do believe that training needs to take place on your actual database, so that we can see how specifically it is that you've entered things into the system, and if the way that you have things could be part of the reason why you're having trouble getting things out of the system in the way that you need to. So that's a little bit about me, and what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to go through the people that are registered here and get an idea of what we have. So we have, hi Jennifer, we have a hospice here, annual giving. Okay, and Maureen is with University Director of Grants. Okay. Okay. Okay, so we have a few schools. Okay. Okay, it's kind of a variety of what it is that we have here. So that is good. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to write them in the chat part of the program as we go through, or you can ask me to unmute you in the chat, and you can ask any questions that you have there. So I'm going to start off the class with definitions. We're very, very big on definitions, on what things mean in the system. And we get asked a lot, what is the difference between a dashboard and a report? And so I'm going to go over the definition between the two, but I'm going to throw in the definition of a query, because in my experience, it seems like people are querying for everything. There is a section of the control panel there that is like a show of hands. It's like a hands thing. So when I say that it seems like organizations tend to be querying for everything, for all of the reporting and for their mailing needs, can I see show of hands of how many people that kind of rings true for? Does it seem like you're querying for an awful lot in Razor's Edge, as opposed to using, say, mail or reports or dashboards to get that information out of the system? Yes, okay. It usually usually rings true for a lot of people that are there. And so let me give you a definition. I'll start off by giving you the definition of a dashboard. Both dashboards and reports are analytical tools in Razor's Edge. Their job is to show you information, to identify prospects, and then to show you information in the system in the way that you want to be able to see it. The difference between a dashboard and a report is that a dashboard tends to be more interactive. As well as looking at it, you can also drill down into it and work in a dashboard at the same time that you are viewing it. So dashboards are my favorite part of the program because I think that they let you work most efficiently. You can look at the information that you want to see, you can get updates on a regular basis, and you can drill down to make changes or next steps in a system without having to go into the system, search for a constituent, go into the record. It allows you to drill down directly into them specifically right in the report itself or right in the dashboard itself. The limitation to dashboards is that there's not nearly as many of them as there are canned reports in the system. And dashboards tend to focus on current information as opposed to kind of a historical view of what it is that's happened. So they are a little bit more limited in what they can show you because they kind of see their job is to give you a snapshot of the most current information that is important for you to be able to see. A definition of a report is also an analytical tool. It's a way to be able to show you information that you want. There are a lot more dashboards than there are a lot more reports than there are dashboards, and they are a lot more flexible. Each one is based on a date range, which will allow you to see anything it is that you want to be able to see in the system, and allows you to be based on queries so that a lot of them can narrow down to specifically the group of people that you want to be able to see. There are a lot of great reports in Razor's Edge. The problem is that I think that because of the way that Blackbaud has built reports in the system, a lot of the cool features of reports are hidden in places that you would in a million years never go looking for them. Like when I point them out, it's kind of shocking how they're in a place where you really, if somebody didn't show you to go there, you would never go there to find that information. So when you put the most important parts of a program in a place where no one can find them, that tends to lead to people not going to look at that part of the program or not using that part of the program a whole lot. So that brings me to the definition of a query, because I find that people are, again, they're querying for everything. And whenever you are querying for information in Razor's Edge, you are working harder than you need to be working. And the possibility of error is greatly increased when you're querying for information. So the definition of a query is that a query is a grouping tool. It's nothing more than a grouping tool. It's a way to go from everybody in the database to specifically the group of people that you want to report on or that you want to mail to. But it's not how you report on them or how you mail on them. It's just the who. So I always say that queries are the who, not the how. Queries are considered dirty data. It's everything in the system. When it narrows down to specifically the group of people it is that you want, you need to take that query and use it in conjunction with an output part of the program, like export, reports, anything in mail, or dashboards. And when it runs through those parts of the program, those parts of the program, since they're output parts of the program, viewing parts of the program, they clean it and then they present it to you in the way that you want to be able to see it. So many of the safeguards that exist in mail to give you clean mailing lists easily, and the parts in reports that remove duplicates the same way that the features in mail do, to show you information the way that you want to be able to see it, they don't exist in query. Because query, I always say, query is kind of like a tool where it's kind of going, why are you looking at me? You're not supposed to look at me. You're only supposed to narrow from me. This is like, don't look at me. I'm ugly. I'm showing you a lot of duplicates, and everything isn't the way it's supposed to be. I'm not presentable. So a lot of times when your queries aren't looking the way that they're supposed to, is because we're using them for a purpose that they weren't intended to be used for originally. And we'll kind of see that as we go through. In fact, one of my favorite parts of this class is to show you how much we can build without ever having to build a query at all. A lot of it has to do with your structure and the way that things have been entered in. The more your fields match the definitions of what Blackbaud thinks they need to be, the easier it is to be able to run a variety of things in Razor's Edge without ever having to run queries at all. In fact, sometimes I think it's my mission in life to find ways not to query. If I'm querying, I consider it a personal failure on my part, that I couldn't figure out a way to do it, to get it done an easier way without having to build a query. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to start with the dashboards component of the class. And can I see a show of hands of how many of you have a capital campaign of any kind going on, either in the beginning, middle, silent stages of any kind of capital campaign? Okay, so there are a few of you, it seems, that so beginning, middle, end stages of a capital campaign. Okay, and how about is there anyone there who's working kind of with pledges, a lot of pledges and major gifts? Okay. Okay, so I'm going to start the dashboard section with reports that have to deal with capital campaigns. I'm going to make it the focus a capital campaign, but really capital campaigns, the only thing that makes them unique is that they tend to be larger gifts, and larger gifts sometimes tend to be broken down by pledges. So a lot of times when we get capital campaign gifts, they're broken down into pledges. So we need an overview, we have a set goal, and we need to know how we're doing against that goal on a regular basis. But that really defines how we deal with most major gifts in the system, whether or not they are capital campaign gifts. So we're going to go through that. So to find my dashboards on the Razor's Edge bar here, I'm going to go to dashboards, and then I'm going to go to new. Now, when a new dashboard comes up, the first thing that I'm going to do is give it a name. Giving it a name is way more important than it would seem, because unfortunately the default is called new dashboard, and it will allow you to save a report called new dashboard, or a dashboard, sorry, over and over and over again. One of the coolest features of a dashboard is that they can be shared with other staff members at your organization without them having to build the exact same one. Unfortunately, when they go to share it, if they're all named new dashboard, they won't know which one to load into their system. So naming a dashboard is very important. So I'm going to call this one a capital campaign dashboard. And I'm going to start off by building a campaign summary, double clicking to bring it over. So I click on campaign. You can either hit add or again double click to move it from the left to the right. Once it's over on the left to the right, I can either double click on here to open it or hit edit, and that will open it as well. I'm a double clicker, so I'm gonna double click to open it. So this is creating an individual panel, and just to kind of emphasize this a little bit, I find that when people are using dashboards, which not a lot of people are using them, they are using them. I'm seeing a lot of dashboards that are one report, where really a dashboard is an umbrella for a series of reports, meaning that capital campaign is the topic, and then every panel, each individual panel that you see here, is a report about that subject, each one analyzing a different area of a capital campaign. This one is going to give me a summary. So a panel is equivalent to a individual report, and a dashboard holds together a series of reports. So I'm going to call this one a capital campaign summary. And I'm going to ask to see this information in both a table and a graph. When I get to the campaigns to include part, I'm going to hit select, and I'm going to ask for it to bring over. Now again, this is a sample database, so I'm really hoping that they have these things over here to kind of show you how you're not supposed to set up your campaigns, because these are not good examples for campaigns at all. Let me give you the definition of a campaign and what it's meant to report on. A campaign is your ability as an organization to report on big level numbers. When reporting to an audience like the board, they don't really want the specifics most times of how well you did on your fall direct mail appeal. They want to know how you did against your goal for annual giving. So it's your ability to report on big level numbers. Usually when we look at a traditional nonprofit, your campaigns would fall into kind of mainly 5 categories. There are always exceptions depending on the type of organization it is that you are and what kind of fundraising that you do, but they are usually annual giving, major gifts, capital campaign, if you have a capital campaign that's going on, special events, and planned giving. Those are the areas where if we took your office and we created it into a pie chart, those are the chunks usually that we are comparing against each other, and that we set goals for how we need to do against each one of those areas. Now let me speak a little bit about planned giving. Planned giving a lot of times would fall into major gifts by definition, but here's the problem of when you get a planned gift and we count that money towards one of our other goals, that when the board looks at that money at the end of the year and a planned gift has come in, your goals are your amount raised is inflated. And if they are increasing your goal based on performance of what you did from the last year, then they tend to increase that goal based on a plan, that has a planned gift included in it. And I can't duplicate planned giving on a year-to-year basis. I can't go around killing people so that we have planned gifts kind of coming in, right? So I need them to be able to see that money, but not include it against in the other bucket, so that they know that it's there. But these are gifts that come in that I can send out. I can cultivate my planned gifts. I want to know how we're doing in those areas, but I don't want to count that revenue towards my other areas that are there. So any questions about campaigns at all and what it is that they mean? Let me know if you need me to unmute you at all to do them. A lot of organizations will, if they're looking at special events, they'll say, oh, special events is part of our annual giving, and that's fine. But having them in 2 areas allows you to exclude event revenue from any reporting you want, if you ever need to be able to do that. If you want to report on them together, it's very easy to combine them. But if they are combined all in one area and then you need to exclude one section, it becomes very difficult to be able to do that. So they're better off in separate chunks there. I always say that campaigns are what it is that you're counting money towards. Appeals is how money is raised, but campaigns is the umbrella that money falls under, so that when you're reporting to the board, it's what area it is that you are reporting to. And it gives you the ability at a click of a button to see a goal versus actual for how you're doing in a year for each one of those areas. So I have a question here. It says, do you set up a different campaign for each annual year? That is a really good question. And that answer is that it depends on your organization and the type of report that your board wants to see. The way that I kind of figure that out for each organization is to say this: how important is the goal? If your board wants to see a comparison of annual giving over the last 5 years, then I can do that without them having a year associated with them. I can say, this is how we did in 12-13, 13-14, 14-15, and how we're going to do in 15-16. But I can't, without them having a year, have a goal against them. So if your board wants to see a report where they want to see goal for 12-13 versus actual for 12-13, goal versus for 13-14 versus actual for 13-4. Well, the years are getting mixed up, but you see what I mean? If you need a report that is goal versus realized, goal versus realized, goal versus realized, then you do want to split them up into separate years, because it's the only way that I can maintain the goal for each specific year and then report against it. If the goal comparison per year is not important to them and it's only a breakdown per year on amount realized or amount that's been received, and it doesn't really matter what the goal was for each year, except maybe the current year, then you're fine with not having years associated with them. So really, like all of reporting in Raiser's Edge, your reporting needs to reflect the questions that you get asked the most often. And so when we know how they want you to report, we create the coding in Raiser's Edge to be able to generate that. So I have another question here. It says, my company has asked me to have a year for every pledge made. Have a year for every pledge made for the campaign. So 15-16 is my campaign for everything. Will my dashboards and reports still be workable. Here's my problem is that what I think that when someone asks you to create something in the campaign level and they don't really understand what the job of a field is, then that's a problem, because what they're doing is that they're eliminating the definition of that field and basically just making it the year. Well, you guess what? There's already a field that tracks the year. It's called the date. It's called the date field, right? Which means that there is no report in Razor's Edge that I can't get a breakdown for how much money was raised in 1516. But when they get you to put that 1516 as the campaign and everything, which is duplicating the job of a field that already exists, it means the job that the campaign is supposed to have, which means that, like, put it this way, the question that campaign is supposed to answer, I can no longer answer it. So now that breakdown of how we did in each one of those core areas, which is an instrumental, really important question that every single organization gets asked. And again, if all your money is annual and you have no capital campaign and you have no special events and you have no major giving, then by all means call it 1516, because it's all in one bucket and you don't have separate ones that you need to compare it to. But the second you have those separate buckets and you don't have a field to track it with, then I have no choice but to use either appeals or campaigns to kind of crunch those numbers and get them instead. So I think that when you go to an organization at the higher level or director level and you explain to them, I understand what you're trying to do here, but there's a different way to get exactly what you want without substituting the type of reporting that we need to get from that field. And when you explain to them the type of reporting they are meant to get there, all of a sudden they're like, oh, you're right, we do need that. That's important. And so that becomes a little bit easier. So it's really just kind of explaining to them how we can still get the job of Razor's Edge. Again, you bought a Cadillac. You have a Cadillac. It can do everything you want. Actually, I don't know anything about cars, so I don't know how good a car a Cadillac is, but I hear it's lovely. So I'm assuming it can do all of the things that you need it to do, because that's what Razor's Edge is. It can do all of the things that you need it to do. We just have to set it up a very specific way to be able to do that. Okay, I hope that answered your question. All right, so I'm bringing over capital from here, and I'm going to say okay. And again, feel free, guys, to ask questions as you go through. Okay, so I'm bringing over capital, and then this is really important. You've got your gift types to include, which means that when they're looking at these capital campaign totals, what is the money that they want to be able to count? Now, dashboards are a lot smarter than your reports are, and that they are automatically, as you can see here, looking at money that's been received and not including money that's been promised. They do that by default. All of your campaigns will automatically, by default, be looking at money that's received and not including pledges. Because in some reports in Razor's Edge and some dashboards in Razor's Edge, they will, including both the pledge and the matching gift pledge, along with the cash received, so the pledge and including pledge payments, matching gift pledge including matching gift payments, would double count the money, so that when you see the money at the total, you're looking at the $10,000 they promised and the $2,000 that they've paid so far. So you're seeing $12,000 against that person's name instead of one or the other. So it's about learning which reports you need to see a grand total for, and which reports it is that you're using to just view, and which reports are smart enough to separate that money into two separate columns on its own. Every summary dashboard in Razor's Edge, it's okay if you include, I'm going to check all, it's okay if I include both pledges and pledge payments, because summary dashboards, the campaign, fund, and appeal ones, are all smart enough that if you include all that revenue, it will divide the money promised from the money received into separate columns so that it won't double count that revenue. So again, it's okay in these ones to include both of those. Other fields you want to look out for is when they are looking at this revenue, do they want to include gift in kind? I'm going to include everything, but just in case, do they want to see gift in kind money when you run this report? Also, other. Other is a word that means, it doesn't even mean nothing, it means everything, which is worse because it can have a whole bunch of different definitions. So in this case, you need to figure out, is there any money, is there any revenue that's coming in that you guys are coding as other? And if you are, is that type of money that you want included in this report or that you want excluded from this type of report? And then code it and then select it accordingly. So I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to include everything and say, okay. And then I'm going to go to columns to show. Always, columns is the fields that you'll be able to see in the report. So I always want to hit select just to see what my options are. And in this case, I want to see everything. Once I know what they are, I can decide whether I want to mark, whether I want to remove everything, but I'll start off by giving me everything that it's going to let me be able to see and say okay. And then I'm going to hit okay again, and then okay once more for it to load. Okay. I'm remotely connecting to my database, so it's a little slower than it should be on your end, but hopefully it'll come up soon. Yeah, that's an awful long time to wait for a dashboard. Come on. I don't even see the Wheel of Doom, which I usually see, so that's concerning. Come on. Oh, here it comes. Okay. Now, every dashboard, when you run it, every panel looks like this. It has these top 3 buttons up at the top here. This one here is just going to expand the panel horizontally when you click on it. And then this one here is going to minimize it so that it's back to 1 square. This middle one here is going to zoom the panel to the full size of the screen. And then this one here will minimize it back down to an individual square. Okay. This one here is your properties, where you're going to go in to get back into what you did to format that individual panel or report. But you can also do things like copy the table to clipboard, refresh, print, send as email. Now, again, in the I don't know why it is that it's done this, but in the new version of Razor's Edge, they have removed features, cool features that were there before, because I guess it was, I have no idea why they would do that. But I believe the graph can no longer be saved to a clipboard, and I believe you can no longer send something as an email, which this part really bothers me, because this was the only part in Razor's Edge where you could click a button and send an email, send a report as an email directly from within Razor's Edge. So that was rather infuriating when they got rid of that, but what are you going to do? Okay, so I'm going to click on this one to zoom it up, and we can take a look at that report. So from here, what it's doing is it's giving me a graph version of where I am against goal. And then also here, it's giving me the name of the campaign, the goal, the amount received, the variance or the difference between the two, the number of donors, the number of gifts, the average gift given, and the total amount committed, which is, again, this is a summary. So it's meant to give you a snapshot of exactly where it is that you are at against goal in that capital campaign. And what I mean by a dashboard being interactive or drill down, it means that you can click on this campaign and it'll drill you directly into that campaign so that you can make adjustments. If you need to adjust the goal or add solicitors to it, or adjust anything that's there, then you'd be able to do that. And when I hit save and close, it'll bring me right back into the report or the dashboard itself. So I'm going to minimize this one here. And so that's one report or one dashboard it is that we have, one panel. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit customize, which is kind of like edit, to keep adding additional panels to this dashboard. So I'm going to hit customize. And I'm going to go to the gift section here, and I'm going to bring over one of the best and most used ones here. I'm going to bring it over, double click on it here to move it from the left to the right, or you can hit add. And then once it's here, I'm going to either double click on it or hit edit to open it. And what I'm going to do here is that I am going to, I use this for major giving at least in two specific ways. I'm either using this recent gift list to see gifts that have come in. So maybe I'm a solicitor that's working with major gifts, and I just want to see gifts either that I'm responsible for, or I just want to see all gifts as they come in that maybe are over a certain amount, just to identify what they are, so I can see them as they come in. And those gifts, sometimes when I'm a major gift officer, I'm looking for my gifts that have come in. And I'm either looking for them for two reasons. The first reason is that I want to make sure that they're coded correctly. For example, that means that I want to make sure that for my gifts, I'm the solicitor that's been added onto them. I want to make sure that the right campaign fund and appeal have been coded onto the gifts. And then many times I want to make sure that if this gift needs to be linked to a proposal or an event or a membership, that it's been coded properly in all of those different areas. So it's just a double check to make sure that gifts have been entered in the way that I need them to be. That's one way that you use the report. Another way that you use the report is that you want to identify your gifts as they come in so that there's a next step that you can do to follow through with that. So for example, maybe if for all gifts that come in that are over a certain amount that I am responsible for, I follow up with a phone call, or I send them a personalized email as a thank you, or I send them a specific letter on top of the general receipt thank you letter it is that they already get, that's a bit more custom and comes directly from me. So it's your ability to look at the gifts as they come in so that you can do a next step in relation to them. So I'm going to call this recent gifts to the capital campaign. Okay, and I'm going to ask for gifts that have come in. I'm going to choose this fiscal year. It's a sample and I just did an upgrade to it, so there's not a whole lot of information in this sample database. I am going to ask to see soft credits, and I'm just going to point out this field here. Don't show gifts that are less than. This is incredibly important because it's one of the only, if not the only, report in Raiser's Edge that is going to allow me to narrow down by a date range in the report itself. And that's huge. So that if you don't want to see gifts that are under a certain amount, then you can just say, don't show me gifts less than $100. And this report will only focus on gifts that are $100 and higher. So that's very important, again, because that's not something that you can do in many other reports in Raiser's Edge at all. Then I'm going to go here to my campaigns, and I'm going to hit select. And I'm going to bring over capital so that I'm only looking at gifts made to the capital campaign. Okay, and then again, I'm going to go to campaigns to show and hit select to see what the options are, and I'm going to check all. Again, this is one of those reports where if I have under gift types to include here, selected both pledges and pledge payments, that it will double count the money. The total at the bottom will be inflated. But usually I'm using this report, and that's basically what you have to break it down to. Are you using this report so that the grand total at the bottom reflects the exact amount of money that has been received? If so, then you don't want to include pledges because that money hasn't been received, it's only been promised. If you're using this report just to see gifts as they come in, then I absolutely do want to see pledges because I want to see what's happening, what new things have come in, what's been promised, what's been received, all those different things. And again, make sure that you check whether or not you want to include gift in kind in that other field as well. You're going to say OK, and then OK again, and then OK one more time. Oh, okay. I think I said it OK enough times, and it's going to load. So you'll see it here down at the bottom. It says loading dashboard panels, please wait. So sometimes it looks like it's stuck. It's not stuck. It's just thinking about it really, really hard. So now when this one comes up, I'm going to zoom it up to the full size of the screen. And you can see that it's going to show me the gift date, the name of the constituent, the amount, their top constituency code on their record, the gift type, the campaign, the fund, the appeal, and the payment method. Now, these are drill down, so clicking on the gift will drill you down into the gift itself. Drilling down into the gift itself is how you can check to see whether this gift has been coded properly. So for example, when I drill down into it, I can check, am I the solicitor? This is my gift. Am I the solicitor that was added on to this gift? Is it being coded going to the right places? And right down here next to the date, if this gift has been linked to a membership, tribute, event, or proposal, then the icons for those areas will appear here, which means that at a glance, you can tell whether those gifts have been coded properly and connected to the areas that they need to be connected to, because you would see those icons right here. All right, and then I'm going to hit save and close to go back into the dashboard. drilling down into the constituent itself will allow you to do a next step. So now I'm in the constituent record, and from here I can send someone an email. I can create a letter, a custom letter specific to them. I can get their phone number so I can follow up with a phone call. So going into the record itself allows me to kind of do a next step within the system. And if I save and close, it'll take me right back into that dashboard that I was in. So this is what I mean about it being interactive. And a lot of times I don't need to leave my dashboard to get at all of the things that I want to be able to see. Okay, so just a word here about this constituency code that it shows you, because I don't think that Blackbaud does a good enough job of explaining the constituency codes, how they have to be entered in, and the specific quirks that that constituency codes have. So if I go onto someone's record, and I'm Canadian, so my whole database is well, nerds and hockey players basically, and a couple of other celebrities, but mostly nerds and hockey players. All right, so if I look at the constituency codes in here, one of the issues is that constituency codes need to be entered in as a hierarchy. In fact, these ones, well, alumni would usually be above volunteer, I would imagine, but someone's most important relationship to your organization needs to be the top constituency code on their record always. And that is because without you even knowing that it's doing it, the top constituency code on each person's record automatically gets defaulted onto every single gift that they give as their gift constituency. And the constituency code that you are seeing on that report that we were just in, that dashboard, is not one of these, it's the one that's on the gift. The one that's on the gift is the one that's showing in that report because it's a gift report. So it's showing you the gift constituency that's there. So this is really important because the constituency codes here on a record change, but the constituency code on a gift always stays the same at the time that they gave it, which means that if Sidney Crosby was a board member in 2007, his gifts from 2007 are coded as board member gifts. And if he leaves the board and we switch him from a board member to a former board member, then his gifts now are being coded as former board member gifts. So when someone asks you for a report that says how many board members gave in 2007 versus the board members that gave today, you can still get that report, but the only way to get it is from the gift constituency because it isn't on the main constituent record. It's only on the gifts themselves. So when you're looking for comparison by constituency, the only way to get that is by the gift constituency itself, which makes those constituency codes incredibly important. Another thing about constituency codes, these end dates here, they are very awful, evil things. Okay, they do things in the system that we don't know that they're doing. And the problem with it is that at least if they were consistent in doing it, I would be able to deal with it. But the problem is that they eliminate people from certain reports, but not all of them. They remove people from certain types of mail, but not all of them. So now you have to learn which reports are going to react in a certain way to the end dates that are there. And that's one of the main reasons why you do not want to use end dates when it comes to constituency codes. Begin dates do not trigger anything, but end dates absolutely trigger something. They will remove someone from a run. Not only that, if when somebody's a board member and they stop being a board member, if all you're doing is going into the end date and adding it in there, then instead of coding their gifts from then on as a former board member gift, which is an important constituency, what it's doing is it's going automatically to the next constituency code on the list and coding all of the gifts as that instead. So nowhere on their record would it say that these are former board member gifts. They would automatically be coded as volunteer gifts. Finally, my other main reason why you want to make sure that your constituency codes are entered as current and former, as opposed to using the end dates to track them, is this. It's just to simplify the use of the program, right? I want the program to be as simple to use as possible, which means that when I need board member labels or a board member report of any kind, I want to be able to go in here and say labels, because constituency codes are part of your core structure. I want to be able to go into labels and just say filter, constituency code, board members, and done. Now I can send to board members. Or I want to be able to say, oh, you know what? I need to send to board members and former board members. So now I can say, okay, bring over board members and bring over former board members. But I can't do that because there's no place to filter by date fields here. So if your board members are listed as only former because of an end date, then you have no way of reporting to former board members at all this way. It means everything you do needs to be based on a query from here instead. And I don't want to have to query if I don't absolutely have to. If I can do it like this, which is 10 times easier, I'm going to do it like this, because I can explain to the average user of Razor's Edge to come in here and use the filter. But the second I say query, I've lost half my audience, right? They're like, their eyes start to glaze over the second that you mention the query section. So having current and former codes just makes the system easier to use and puts you more in control of exactly what it is that you're selecting. Okay, so that is my spiel on those constituency codes. And those constituency codes and their order become more and more important because they're showing up. This code is showing up more and more places. When you run a report for someone and they look at it and they're like, Sidney Crosby isn't a board member, he's not an alumni, he's a board member. Why isn't he showing up as a board member? Then that would be the reason why, because the codes are not in the right order and they're not defaulting onto the gifts in the right order. So it's making the report look incorrect. Just one other thing about those constituency codes, and that is the best way to kind of describe the type of report that you can get from the Bio2 constituency code as opposed to the gift constituency. It means that if Sidney Crosby gives $1,000 this year, or $8,700 this year, then when you run a report by constituency code, his $8,700 will show up as a board member gift, as a volunteer gift, and as an alumni gift, if he's all three. Whereas if you ran that report by a gift constituency, it would show up once under the constituency that he was in. So again, the constituency codes, as long as they are that constituency, that money is going to show up under it. Whereas the gift constituency report tracks that money once at the time as what they were when they gave that money. I have a question here. Let me just see what it is. Just to confirm, you're saying that if they are a current parent and become a former parent, you would have both and not put an end date on the current parent. No, the job of the constituency code is to track someone's current relationship to your organization, which means that someone is never both a current parent and a former parent at the same time. They're coded as a current parent because that is their, like, current parent is your current relationship to that organization. So you have a current parent code, and if ever you wanted to track them by former parent information, then you're doing that directly by their student information that is connected to them, meaning they're all connected to their kids, and their kids have class years. And whenever you want to know who the parents of a specific class year is, if those are all graduated, then you would be able to find that information from there. But usually for current parents, we're always communicating with them specifically as current parents, even though they are also former parents. Why is it that some organizations still favor queries to the system? I think the problem is that no one has learned how to use the output parts of the system. As you can see, or as you will see when we get into the queries, like I said, they hide things in places where you wouldn't know that they are. So a lot of people don't know how to use them. They can't get those reports to do what they want. And when you haven't learned how to use them, and you haven't learned how to use mail the way that mail, no one knows how to use quick letters. No one even knows quick letters exists. They barely ever train on quick letters. So everyone is using queries to create their mailing lists, which creates massive amount of duplicates, and it can take up to it can take days for somebody to create a clean mailing list when it should be done in 15 minutes, simply because no one has showed them the part of the program that does that part really well. So I think mainly it's lack of knowledge, lack of being shown how to use those parts of the program that will help you a lot better. And because they don't know it, they default to the part of the program that they understand, which is the queries part. And ironically, it's the part that's mainly taught, is how to query for information that's in the system. And I think that also part of the confusion lies that in most other databases, and not just fundraising ones, but ones in general, you go to any other database, like for example, like Access, and a lot of and a query in those bases is the end result. It's how you get the information that you need. But the way the programmers built it in Razor's Edge, it's not. And it leads to so much confusion and misuse. But you can see we've only built 2 dashboards right now, but by the end of it, we'll have built a bunch of dashboards, a bunch of reports, and we wouldn't have had to build one query to get any of them out of the system. So, and those reports are templated. All you have to do is refresh them in the system, which makes the system in general much easier to use and much more consistent, because you're always looking at the same thing instead of having to keep building something from scratch every single time that you need it. I know it's a reports and dashboards class, but really, when we go in and do a training session, they're like, "Oh, we have some users that have been using Razor's Edge for 10 years," and I'm like, "Well, you might want to get them in here, because I'm telling you that we show you how to use the system in a completely different way than the way that people tend to be using it." And like, our goal is to get it so that everyone in the organization can use it for whatever their purpose is, and the system has to be easy to use for everyone that's there. Okay, so that is your recent gift list. I'm going to minimize this one here. And the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to bring over, so I'm going to hit customize again, and I'm going to bring over yet another dashboard panel. And this one is going to be an overdue gift list. I'm going to bring over 2, an overdue gift list and an expected gift list. So whenever it is that you're dealing with pledges, these are 2 very important dashboards. And the expected gift one is one of my favorite ones. So let's format them, and then when we view them, I'll show you what it is that they can do. So for the overdue gift list, this is showing me overdue gifts to the capital campaign, which is an important one for showing you how to keep on top of pledges that you have come in, which is huge, because there's so much volume that you want to make sure that you're keeping on top of pledges as they happen and following up on the ones that are overdue as well. So here I'm going to name it that, and then I'm going to go to campaigns, hit select. If you don't select a campaign, it'll just bring up everybody who has a pledge in the system, which is also pretty valuable. Okay, so I'm bringing over capital, and then again I'm going to columns to show and hitting select, and I'm going to hit check all so I can see all of this information. I'm going to say okay. All right, and then I'm going to hit okay again. Then I'm going to go into the bottom one here, and I'm going to do an expected gift summary. This is something I think that no one knows exists in Razor's Edge, and because they don't know it exists, they're doing a whole lot of work in Excel to basically create exactly the same thing. So here I'm going to call this expected gifts to capital campaign. And I'm going to ask for it to break this information down by fiscal year. Sorry, totals by fiscal year, and break it down by the very last one, constituent. I'm not going to ask this one for the capital campaign. I'll do it for everyone just so that we see more information. And I'm going to say okay, and then okay again for it to load those 2 additional panels. Okay. So I'm just going to zoom this one up and wait for it to appear. Okay, so this one is great because what it's doing is showing me every constituent who has a pledge that is currently past due. So it shows me the date of the original pledge, the amount that's past due, the last payment that was made, and what it was for, and there's that top constituency code again that's showing up on someone's record. So what we want to make sure that we're doing here, this is why this report is so great, is that if you look at this and you're like, oh, this is from 2003, this needs to be written off, there's no way that he's going to keep paying this, then you can do cleanup right from here, because you can drill down into that pledge, or if this is a recurring gift, This is a recurring gift, right? So this is a good example. If this person's recurring gift is finished, then the proper way to do that or to finish it is to select terminated here or completed. And that puts an end to that recurring gift. When someone finishes a recurring gift, that's the way that you finish it. And when you save and close here and refresh it, that person will disappear. If someone here has a pledge that you're like, oh, forget it, they're never going to finish that, I can write off that pledge right from within here by drilling down into the system. So what I love about these dashboards is it allows me to clean. It shows me what it is that's happening and allows me to clean that list so that I can get this report exactly where it is that I want it to be. Now, overdue is defined by the pledge schedule that you have entered into the system. And the second that an installment date that you have entered there is past, that's when a gift shows up as past due. So I'm going to minimize this one here, and I'm going to show you what I think is probably my favorite one. That expected gifts one is probably my favorite one. Okay, sorry. All right. Okay, and I'm going to zoom this one up. This is an expected gift list. This is a forecasting report. Basically what it's doing is it's showing you everybody in the system who has a pledge, and it's showing you the expected revenue for 2015, 16, 17, 18, and 19. So it's showing you how much expected revenue from pledges you can expect per person. And then at the end here, it's showing you the amount of expected revenue that's coming up in each fiscal year. This is a report that most places have to generate for finance every year. And if you have a capital campaign, definitely you have to generate that for finance in every year. And this gets you that information in a really clean, really easy to read way in Razor's Edge. But I'm going to show you how we can also manipulate this exact same dashboard to show me something completely different. So I'm going to minimize this one here, and I'm going to go back to customize, and I'm going to bring over another recent gift list. Sorry, another expected gift summary. Expected gift summary. And this time, instead of coding it by fiscal year, like we did before, I'm going to code it by month. And again, I'm going to ask for a breakdown by constituent. And I'm going to call this upcoming pledges, upcoming pledge payments. Okay, I'm going to ask to see this as a table, and again, I'm going to ask to see this for everyone, just so we see more information since it's a sample database. And now, instead of showing me that information by fiscal year, what I'm getting is everybody who has a pledge and the payments that are upcoming in June, July, and August. This is a great double check for when you're issuing pledge reminders to know who you need to issue pledge reminders for. Usually we use, again, mail. No one's using it, but in mail there's a part of the program called pledge reminders, which will issue your pledge reminder letter. So anybody has a reminder that's due next month, you go in once a month and you run all of your reminders for next month so that you can remind people a month in advance that their pledge payment is upcoming. Well, this is a double check to make sure that these are all the people who have one that's upcoming, and this is the amount that should be on it. So I can double check those reminders against this one that's here. So that's pretty fantastic. Okay, so those are two of the best reports or the best dashboards that exist in there, and they're all really good for whenever you're dealing with pledges or major gifts in any way. Okay, let me see. Are these printable? Yes. For board committee packages, yeah. All you need to do is hit this part right here, and then hit print. Or you copy it to a table to a graph. I find that, I don't know if they fixed it in the new version of the program, but it used to be that when you hit print, it would print all weird and strange in the middle of the page. If that's happening to you, then just clip it to a clipboard, open up Excel or Word, and you can drag it to a normal size and then print it from there. But yeah, part of the best thing about this is how flexible and easy it is that they are to use and adjust, and kind of, yeah, they're fantastic. I love dashboards. Okay, so Again, now we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, like 5, and we haven't built one query to get any of that. And we're getting some pretty cool, well, I'm a nerd, so this cool to me at least, information. And what I care about is that it's accurate, it's easy to run, and all I have to do is hit refresh. So, for example, if I create this dashboard for a director, they no longer have to ask me any of these questions. I no longer have to run any of these reports for them. All they have to do is hit refresh, and automatically this information will be updated, and they can see each one of these reports as they need it. All right, so I'm gonna now hit. I'm gonna move on to annual giving dashboards. So I'm gonna hit new, and I'm going to call this an annual giving dashboard. And I'm going to go to the appeal section here, and I'm going to bring over an appeal summary. You know what? Just to give you a word about campaigns and appeals. Because of the terminology, we as fundraisers call appeals campaigns. And so in their wisdom, Blackbaud chose to use the word campaign for something completely different in the system with a completely different definition. But because of that, there is a huge confusion between what is a campaign and what is an appeal. And I see a lot of information that should be in appeals in the campaign section. Unfortunately, appeals can do like 4 or 5 things that campaigns cannot do. And when you are tracking the ask, the how well your asks are doing in campaigns instead of appeals, then we've lost a bunch of functionality. Because those the ability to report on those areas that should be tracked as appeal don't exist from the campaign part. And we're going to talk a little bit about that here. I have a question. Hold on. What's my question here? If you did that and send a pledge reminder, would it record it in the record? Yes, it would. When you send a pledge reminder letter, it keeps track of every reminder that has been sent. It doesn't keep a track of the actual letter. It keeps track of the date that the reminder letters were generated them, so that you can click on someone's record and see all of the reminders that they've been sent and what day it is that they've been sent. When you generate the reminders, I usually then save those Word documents in Word in a file, so that if I wanted to go back and see the reminder letter that was sent, it's easy to go back and find it based on that date, because the date is on the gift, and that's how I file them by date as well. Okay. So from here, so that leads to a lot of confusion. So I'm just gonna give you a definition of an appeal. An appeal tracks every single solicitation it is that we send, so that we can analyze how well those asks are doing. From a fundraising perspective, appeals are the most important part of fundraising, because all we can do as fundraisers is ask people in different ways, try different things, and then analyze to see whether or not those changes that we're making are more or less successful than what we've done in the past. So here's why certain things are important. Every appeal needs to have a year associated with it. Okay, there are certain organizations that are running appeals without years. You can't do that. They don't report in the same way without them. You're, again, losing functionality, and you're minimizing your ability to report properly when your appeals don't have years associated with them. And what that means is, first thing I get is I can report on it based on a date range argument, right? And the truth is that you can't, because analyzing how much money came in within a specific date range is different from analyzing how successful an appeal was. And what that means is that when money comes in related to an appeal, I don't care when it comes in. I don't care if it came in before that fiscal year started, and I don't care if it comes in after that fiscal year is ended. It was raised by that appeal. And I want to know my success rate of that appeal, regardless of the date in which when that gift came in. Okay. Whereas if I'm reporting just on a date range, I'm not reporting on the success of an appeal. I'm reporting on how much money came in between this date and this date, which is a finance question, and also a question I can still get just by date. So I can still get them that answer, even if my appeals have years associated with them. But what happens often is that sometimes someone will say, Here's my gift for 2013. It's December. Here's my gift for 13-14, and here's my gift for 13-14, 15-16. So I'm giving you both at the same time, but one is for one appeal, and one is for 1 year, and one is for the other year. Well, both those gifts came in the same date. So if you don't have appeals with different years associated with them, I can't apply one to 1 year and one to the other year, which complicates a lot of things. It complicates my reporting. It complicates my ability to not ask them again in the next upcoming year when they've already made that gift. Okay, so it creates a lot of problems in those areas. Also, appeals have the ability to track expenses, and appeals have packages. If every ask is not its own appeal, then you are simply erasing all of that information for 1 year for the previous year and replacing it with the one for this year, which means that reporting backwards in comparison, I no longer have the ability to report on expenses and cost per dollar raised, number solicited, and percentage of response moving forward because I've replaced that information with the information for the current year. So again, you're limiting your ability to get to answer a wide variety of questions and to answer them accurately when your appeals don't have years associated with them. How many of you are using packages in Razor's Edge? Okay, so a few of you are. Okay, how many of you don't know what packages are and need kind of a definition or explanation as to what a package is? Okay, all right. So let me kind of give you a definition for what it is that they are. A package is a segmentation of an appeal. And because of what that means, they can be used in a variety of different ways. But just to kind of give you an example, a segmentation of appeal basically means if I'm sending out a fall direct mail appeal and everybody is getting the exact same letter, then that is an appeal with no packages, like a newsletter. Everyone's getting exactly the same newsletter, or an event where everybody gets exactly the same event invitation. That is an appeal with no packages because everybody's getting exactly the same thing. But if I'm sending out a direct mail appeal and I'm sending out, how did I get there? Sorry, I should be in here, back in here. Oh, it's in it disappeared completely. Sorry about that. New appeal summary. Okay, and if I'm sending out a fall direct mail appeal and I'm sending one ask specific to board members, one ask, say you're a school, I'm sending another one out to current parents, I'm sending another one out to alumni, I'm sending another one out to past parents, then that is an appeal that has segmentation. It means different people are getting different letters. Those are packages. So board member, current parent, alumni, faculty, staff, grandparents, past parents, those are all packages of that appeal so that I can track how many people received each letter and what was the response rate on each one. How well did we do from each one of those groups? If you're not a school, then traditionally packages are things like how much, a letter specific to current donors, a letter to people who gave last year but haven't repeated their gift yet this year, a letter to our lapsed donors that gave in the past but haven't given recently, or sometimes they're broken down by amounts. One letter to people who gave between this amount and this amount, one letter to ones that gave in a higher amount. So segmentation just means that you are, instead of asking everyone the same way, you're asking people in different ways, and packages allow you to track the different letters that you're sending out and how well each one of those different letters are doing. So when a lot of organizations don't know that those packages exist, what they're doing is they're creating like 5 appeals instead of having one appeal with 5 packages. So it means you end up with a whole lot more appeals, and you don't report on them as in relation to each other as much as you would otherwise. Okay, so that is a definition of appeal. So I'm going to bring over an appeal, and I'm going to bring over an appeal package response so that you can see what it is that those types of reports look like. So I'm going to go into the first one here. I'm going to double click on it to open it, and I'm going to call this the 14-15 Annual Giving Fall direct mail. I'm the most anal human being on the planet, so I have a very specific way of coding all of my mailings so that I can tell all annual giving is together, all major giving is together, all special events is together. I know which year, and then I would know what type, like direct mail versus phone-a-thon versus email blast versus one-on-one personalized like proposal that we're sending out. So that way those keywords I can pull out the ones that I want really easily. Like I said, I'm incredibly anal. So I'm going to ask for this information as a table and a graph. And under appeals to include, I'm going to bring over that appeal, the 14-15 annual giving fall direct mail appeal. And say OK. I'm going to choose the gift types. This is a summary. So remember, if I bring over pledge and pledge payments, it will divide that money into two separate columns and won't double count. But you still want to check whether you want to include other or gift in kind in that report. And under columns to show here, I'm going to hit select and check all. And then say OK. Now when I create the one for the appeal package response, I'm going to name it the same way. So it'll be a 14-15 annual giving fall direct mail appeal package response. I'm going to ask for it as a table and a graph. Oh, the graph doesn't do anything. I'm just going to ask for it as a table. Appeal to include, I'm going to bring over exactly the same one. 14-15 annual giving fall direct mail. Say OK. And I'm going to ask for it in a fiscal year. Columns to show, I'm going to hit select. And all of them are selected already. And I'm going to run it. And then we'll look at each one. Oh, you know what? For this one, I'm going to bring over both a direct mail appeal and an event so that you can see what they both look like. Because we use packages differently for an event than we do for a direct mail appeal. Or at least I do. Okay, so I'm going to open up this appeal summary. And this looks very much like a campaign summary, but I want to focus on the areas that are different. So again, you've got your goal versus actual, you've got your appeal, goal, amount received, variance, number of donors, number of gifts, average gift. This is up to here, it's exactly the same. But see the stuff that it can do that the campaigns can't do. It tracks expenses. So I can go in and put in all of my expenses for the appeal, which then calculates my percentage of response, or my cost per dollar raised here. Now, see here the number solicited? This is how the program kind of works together. And I say this a lot, that people are using the input and output of Raiser's Edge. They are disconnected from one another. You learn about how to put information in, but no one learns how to put information out. But the system is synced together to work in conjunction with one another. Part of the way that it does that is I create a mailing list. I have to send out my appeal for the fall direct mail. For that, I need to create an appeal. Creation of mailing lists or letters is done through mail in a part of the program called Quick Letters, which allows you to create simply mailing lists that can be segmented so that you're sending different letters to different groups of people. It gets rid of duplicates and it makes sure that everyone's getting exactly the letter it is that they're supposed to receive. And it does all that really easily. But on top of that, after it creates that mailing list, it goes back onto the record of the constituents and it tracks the letter and the package, the appeal and the package that that person received. And then it calculates the exact number of people that received that appeal and each package. And that fills in here, number solicited. So that's calculated by the system once it removes all the duplicates and fine-tunes that list. So it calculates the number solicited, and then it calculates the percentage of response that fills in here. So all of these things here, when you're using your campaigns as appeals, do not exist, and you can't use them. So let me just show you where those things are in a lot of places. If I drill down into the appeal itself, here are where my expenses are in the appeal. Right there. And then here are where I can create my packages. Right there. So there's some example of them: current donors, lapsed, LIBOR, prospects. And then here on the general one, this is where it fills in the number solicited. Here is where you enter in your goal. So again, I enter information into a constituent record. I use the mail feature to create lists. It tracks that the lists have been sent. When somebody gives to that appeal that I sent out, it connects it to the ask that has been made, which when I go into a report, all comes together right here. So it's connecting the input to that output in those places. But we're not using the middle part of the feature that connects the two of those parts together. And then comes out like this. So I'm going to minimize this one here. And I'm going to open up this one here. Zoom that up. And so here are the packages connected to that. So this is showing me, this is how we did on that appeal. Number solicited, number of gifts, total amount given. And this is a breakdown of how we did from each individual package, which is great. So now each one of those letters, how did we do on each one of those? What was our rate of response? All those different things. Actually, the rate of response comes in a report that exists, but that's a pretty good overview. Now, when it comes to an event, okay, our packages for events are different than our packages for an appeal, because even if you have the event module in Raiser's Edge, it does a really poor job of reporting on financials. The event module does a really good job of planning and organizing an event, and a really bad job of reporting on the financials of that event, which means that even if I have the event module, I still need to set up my appeals and packages this way, which means the appeal is the name of the event, and my packages are all of my revenue streams for that event. Gold, silver, all of my sponsorship, the auction donations, tickets made on site, ad revenue, any revenue stream, so that I can say, this is how much money we raised from the event, this is how much we raised from each one of those areas, and get a breakdown of that really easily, which again is the purpose of a database is to answer the questions we get asked most often. And when it comes to an event, this is the question I get asked most often, right there. So I want it easy to enter, easy to view, easy to report on, and those numbers are always accurate. Okay, so I'm going to minimize this here. Minimize this here so that we have the two panels again. And okay, so what I'm going to show you how to do this time, let's see why that is, okay, is I'm going to add another, so I'm going to hit customize and add another panel to this one. This time I'm going to bring over another appeal summary, the same one that I used to create that top one there. But this time I'm going to use that appeal summary in a different way. And again, this is going to emphasize why it's important that every appeal have a year associated with them and for them to be broken down. Because now when I get to this section here where I say appeals to include, this time I'm going to bring over the, let me see here, fall. Okay. So I'm going to bring over the 12, 13, 13, 14, and 14, 15 appeals. So what I'm doing is that I'm essentially creating a comparison report. Check all. An appeal to include, I'm going to ask to see all of these different things. Oops. Select. Check all. Okay. Okay. And okay again. So now I'm comparing how that fall appeal has done as both a table and a graph over 3 years. Now, if you did not have your appeals broken down by year, you couldn't get this report like this. And you definitely couldn't get it with expenses, cost per dollar raised, solicited, and percentage of response. Okay, so that is a comparison report. Now, instead of a comparison report, I'm going to hit customize, and I'm going to bring over another appeal summary. And this time, the appeal summary, instead of bringing over multiple fall appeals, I'm going to bring over all of the appeals for this year. So everything that we're doing in 14, 15. Okay. And that, again, I'm going to bring these ones over here. So what I do is I create all of my appeals at the beginning of the year, all of the things that I know are going to happen, even if they're not going to be sent out for another 4 or 5 months. Because what this does is it shows me everything that's coming up. Okay, so it shows me everything that's upcoming here. And as they go out, the money starts trickling in. And here is my total amount raised. So at any point, someone can say, oh, this has gone out. This is how we did for each appeal, the detail of each appeal, and then how we did as a summary for all of them combined. So it's a really great report for getting that detail and an overall summary of where we are financially for the year. So those are my appeal ones there. Any questions about anything that we've created so far? I know it's a lot because now we built a lot of different reports, and see how we haven't had to build one query? Not one query. See, I'm feeling very proud of myself right now. Yeah, so you are able to get a lot of information. It's the coding of the system that makes that information come out. And again, yeah, so it's plus it's just, I mean, querying is a nightmare. Who likes to build queries? No one likes to build queries. Queries cause heartache. They're just bad things. Okay, let me see. So any questions about any of the ones that we've built so far? I think we're going to move on to reports. Unless anyone has any questions about queries. Do you want me to anyone want me to unmute them so that they can ask a question? Okay, so I'm going to move on to the reports part of the program. And I'm going to go through some of my favorite reports in the system. There's one report, I'm just going to start with a really basic, simple one, but it's one that it took me forever to figure out how to do properly. And so I'm going to show you how to do that. And that's just a directory, a contact list. So say I need a board contact list. I'm going to delete this one and recreate it. Or staff one or a donor one. But I'm going to do it as though they were board members. So what I did was I went to reports. From reports, I'm going to the profiles, lists, and directories. Okay, and then I'm going to a constituent directory right here. Okay, and I'm going to go to filters. Again, I want it to be really easy to use, so I'm going to have current and former all separated into two separate codes. And I want to bring over just my board members. If I wanted former board members as well, I would bring them over too, but in this case, I just want board members. Then I'm going to go to tab number 4. And here, see where it says print two addresses on the report, settings for the first one, settings for the second one. So what I'm going to do here is the settings for the first one are fine. In the first column, I want address information, and I want it to come from the preferred address. Okay. On the second address here, I want it to come from the phone, and I want all of them. This is the only report in Raiser's Edge that will let you pull over all phone types. So this is a really important report when it comes to that. Most of the other ones, for some inexplicable reason, will make you select one or default to the top one that they follow on the record, as though somehow we don't need to see a cell phone number and an email address at the same time. It's absurd, but anyways, that's the way that it is until they fix it, which eventually I'm sure that they will. Eventually. So then once I select the phone types, in the new version of the program, you probably don't have to bring over the address part, but if you're still on the older version of Raiser's Edge, you will. You have to say, I want the addresses that are connected to this preferred address. Then I'm going to go to Format. And in headings, I'm going to give that report a name. So I'm going to call it a board directory, board member. Okay. And under the detail section here, you have an option to include a spouse, include a maiden name, but here it says group by first initial. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how it looks when they're not grouped by initial, and then I'll show you what it looks like when it is grouped by initial so you can see the difference between the two. So I'm going to hit preview. And what it's doing is it's showing me the name, the address information, and then all of their contact information here. Okay. And so now I'm going to close it. And I'm going to go to group by first initial, and I'm going to run it again. And you can see the difference between the two. This makes it look more like a directory. So that now you've got the initial, everybody whose last name under an A underneath it, and their contact information. So it's really just a formatting issue. But again, I just kind of want to point out, who creates a report and then puts the most important field in a report, the place where you can adjust everything that happens in a report, not only on the very last tab, but as the third column, named something so obscure you would never go there in a million years if somebody put a gun to your head. I mean, that's how much someone would never go there. It's crazy what it is that they did here. I don't even know what to say. Because some parts, if you think about them too much, it will just drive you crazy. This is one of those ones for me. Detail. That's what they call it. Detail. It's not even like in red or have an arrow or something next to it that says, please go here, because all the stuff you need is right here. Now, some reports will also have a field here called optional columns, and you always want to check to see if it's there, because if it is there, it's going to allow you to add more information into that report than you would otherwise. But without fail, you need, whenever you create a report, to click on the details section. If there's a way that it's going to, all the cool stuff is there. If it's going to allow you to adjust it, manipulate it in any way, that's where it's going to allow you to do it. So it could be that you go there and there's nothing that you need to do. That's fine, but more often than not, there's going to be some cool information there that will let you adjust the report in a way that is pretty significant. So I'm going to close out of this one here. Any questions about the contact report or the directory? Okay. Well, feel free to ask as we go on. I'm gonna try a different report here. Okay, now if there is one report in Razor's Edge that I know every single organization is using, sometimes it is the only report that anyone is using. It is the, under Finance, the gift detail summary report. Everyone's best friend, the gift detailed summary report. Can I see a show of hands of how many of you are using the gift detailed summary report? Yes, I knew it. Okay. But I'm not putting it down because it is a fantastic, it was one of the best reports in Razor's Edge. So it's fantastic that people are using it because it can be manipulated in so many different ways that it makes it a really, really great report. But unfortunately, it's like the only report that people are using. And sometimes there are much better options to get you the information in a way that you want to see it in a different way. So let me give you an example of that. When someone asks for a one-pager of a giving history for an individual or an organization, or when they ask for something like a board member report, I want to know board member giving. I never run a gift detail summary report. I run, under financial reports, a constituent giving history. Whenever someone asks for a one-pager on someone's giving, I run this report. So I'm going to double click on it here. And I'm going to go to filters, and I'm going to narrow down again to board members because that's as easy it should be to get a board member giving history report. Constituency code, board member. And I just want to point out something here. See this up there? Your constituency code or gift constituency code, right? So what they're saying here is that if you want to see only gifts coded as board member gifts, then you have the option of running this report by the gift constituency or the constituency code. In this case, I don't care what's coded on the gift. If this person is currently a board member, I want to see all of their giving, regardless of how it's coded. So I'm going to say OK. And next, I'm going to go to gift types. And I'm going to include everything. I want to see all of their giving, so I'm not going to change anything there. Attributes, I can just ignore that. There's nothing I need to do there. Tab number 5 is your columns. And whenever I see columns, it means I can adjust what is on that report. I can adjust the column width, even what the columns are called, and switch it from portrait to landscape. So I'm going to bring over the reference field, because sometimes that's a good one to bring over. I can even bring over the package. So say instead of fund, I wanted to bring over appeal and package instead. I could do that. So let's bring over appeal and package. It's going to be really crowded in that report, but so bring over appeal ID and package. Make this one above that one. Okay, and switch this to landscape, which will hopefully give me a bit more space. And then I'm going to go to tab number 6. I always go to tab number 6 and 7 because the individual address, the organization address, just controls whether or not you want someone's address information to appear on that report. So usually I'm going here to make sure it says none, because I don't want to see address information on a financial report. It makes that report 10 times longer than it needs to be, and usually where someone lives is completely irrelevant to a financial report. So I like for it not to be there, but I have to check because sometimes it's there and sometimes it's not. It's not consistent. So I a lot of times check to make sure that I remove it if it is there when I don't want it there. And then I go to format, and here again I'm going to name it. So I'm going to call it a board member giving history. And I'm going to click on detail, the most important one. This is a really good example of why this is an important report, because look at what's here. It says include non-givers on that report. That's incredibly important for a board member report. It means that whether that board member has given a gift or not, I want their name to appear there. So that if, next to a board member that has not given, I see their name and nothing. Right? So that I can see all of the board members and whether or not they've given. If I didn't know this was here, I would only be seeing board members that had given, and board members that have not given wouldn't appear on the report at all. And that's not giving me the complete history of what it is that I want to be able to see. I can't shame someone into giving if I don't know that they haven't given to begin with, or I can't illustrate it on a piece of paper. So this is really, really important. And then I'm going to hit preview. And this shows me the board member, all of their giving, and then a subtotal per person. Even better, when that person has, say, let's see, I'm going to go to the next page. Try and find somebody with a pledge. Okay. Who's got a pledge? Sorry. I would think that Robert Hernandez at least would. There you go. So this is Robert Hernandez, the end of his subtotal. It shows you the pledge, so the total amount in cash, the pledge, if there's a balance still remaining on that pledge, how much is still outstanding. So you get a really great summary of exactly what this donor has done. How much in cash, how much pledged, what's the balance on that pledge, how much of that they've given is gift in kind, and how much of it is in stock as well as the detail of every gift that they've given. So it's a really good summary to give. And so I think of it as I always use a gift detail and summary when the emphasis for me is on who gave and how much they gave. I want the name of the person they're giving and a subtotal for how much that person gave, which the gift detail and summary focuses on all of the gifts given more than the people who gave them. I'm assuming this would work for prospect research. How would you report on both individual giving history and their corporation? Would you run them separately or partner giving with a firm? Usually, are you soft crediting? Because a lot of times when they give through a corporation, we soft credit the individual for the gifts given by the corporation. So if you were to include soft credits, it would on their record include their gifts and the gifts that are soft credits. The ones that are soft credits would have an asterisk next to them so that you would know that those gifts were soft credited instead. Does that answer the question? If not, if I wanted both the individual and the corporation on the record, then what I would do is I would probably create a query that created those two records in there, and then base this report on those two records. So I would say include selected. The query that I have would contain the record for that individual and their company, so that when I ran the report, it would show me the individual and their giving, and then the next record would be, the only other record would be the company and their giving, but it would be all on one report. So remember, this illustrates it perfectly. The query is the who, and the who you want is the individual and their company. The report is what you want to see and how you want to see it. So see the difference is that query is nothing more than the who you want. If all we want is board members, we filter by board members here. If I can't filter by that individual and its company within a filter, then I need to query. I need to query to just the who that I want, which is those two ones. And that's all that a query should do. Narrow down to those two specific people, but the report is doing the job of showing me the information in the way that I want to see it, without duplicates, and a clean, easy to read way, with a really good clue that a query is not a report is that a query will never show you totals or subtotals for an individual. Right? So you have to move it into Excel to get it to calculate it the way that you want to. So it's way of telling it, you're not supposed to be looking at me. Stop looking at. I always picture like a shamed query, like a half naked in the towel query going, why are you looking at me? You're not supposed to be looking at me. I'm not dressed yet. You're supposed to funnel me through and output part of the query, and then I will look presentable to you. Yeah, so we're looking at a lot of naked queries. All right. It's funny how I get it. It's like I'm talking to myself, but I'm amusing myself greatly as I teach these classes. All right. Okay. So that is another example of a report. Okay, I've got a question here. I've been asked to give a summary of our last spring appeal. Number mailed, number donors, number who gave, average gift person, and total donated. Before today, would have queried it, but can you tell me which dashboard report? Exactly the one that we just ran. That is an appeal summary. An appeal summary is this one. And that answers every single question you just asked. Appeal, goal, amount received, variance, number of donors, number of gifts, average gift given, plus all the expense stuff. But if you don't have that, you can hide those columns. So I would say this one. So you would pick that appeal, and that would give the summary from it. You can also get it from a report, but I just find dashboards easier to read. They just look cleaner to me. Whereas sometimes the reports in Raiser's Edge, not all of them, but some of them, they kind of pile information on top of one another. So it's harder for me to figure out what's what and to read it. But dashboards are so clean that it kind of eliminates all of the confusion for what I want to see and how I want to see it. Okay, let me see here. So if I go back to my reports here, I'm going to do a like analytical. All the analytical reports in Raiser's Edge are good. Every single one of them is a good report. So I'm going to create a SciBunt report. So I'm just going to give you a definition for what a SciBunt report is. SciBunt stands for, and it says it right here at the bottom, some year, but unfortunately not this year. So really it's a lapsed donor report. It's people who gave in the past but haven't given recently within the time period that you've selected. So I'm going to double click and show you how you would run this report. So from here, I'm going to say include constituents, but not include constituents who gave a gift, but not in this date range. So I'm going to switch this from this calendar year to specific range. And I'm going to choose, so let's see, 15, 14, 13, 12. So I'll say anyone who gave a gift, but not within the last 3 years. That's a little trick of the calendar, that they can be filtered that way. Again, something that would be nice if people showed you how to do that. Calendar stuff is there for a purpose. You don't have to scroll back and forth for a million years to get at the year that you want. It's the little things that make people happy. And then here, I'll say until the end of this month. So anybody who gave a gift in the past but hasn't given a gift since 2012, between 2012 and now. I'm going to go to the gift types. Again, I'm going to include all types of gifts that someone could have given. I'm going to include soft credits, because if they gave through a different vehicle, I still want them. I want to include them. Tab number 5. There you go. See how I have to go check each time, because if I don't want the address information there, sometimes it shows up anyway. So I have to remove it. All right, then I'm going to go to tab number 7. And I'm going to go to details. And here it's just giving me the option of an order. I do want them sorted by gift amount, so I can see the donors that have given the most that I've lost first. So it's sorted by amount, not by constituent name. And then here's an optional columns. This one actually has it, so I'm going to bring it over. I'm going to bring over the total amount given. And I'm going to hit preview. Okay, so what this is showing me is the name of the company, the amount of the last gift, when that last gift was made, and then the total amount they've ever given. I bring over the total amount because I want to see if that person's last gift was their only gift. I want to see if this is someone, like for example, this person here gave at least 2 gifts and then they stopped giving. So I want to know why did you stop giving? Because look at that, you used to give a lot in the past and then you stopped. Why did you stop? Whereas somebody who made a one-time gift, that could have been because of an event or something, but I want to look into it as well. But I'm more interested in the ones who gave consistently in the past that stopped giving than I am in the one-time donors that gave and then stopped, gave once and then stopped. Okay, so that is a SciBunt report. Some year, but unfortunately not this year. Another word for lapsed donors. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to open it up to questions. Any questions that you have about anything it is that we've covered or talked about, anything anything about the reports or dashboards we've covered so far, any requests for any reports or dashboards? Anyone want me to mute them so that they can ask a question at all about the reporting? See if anyone's, I know it takes a long time to type, so I don't want to dissuade anyone from asking a question there. But yeah, so any questions about, okay, so I'll unmute here in case anyone wants to ask a question.
Oops.
Okay, all right, you guys are unmuted. Does anyone have a question? No? Okay, so then I'll keep muting you in case you guys had, all right, so you're muted again. All right, I'll do one more report. And then again, I'll just leave it open to questions. I'm going to stay on a little bit longer in case anyone has any questions. And so I'll do one more report. What's a good report? Anyone have a request for a certain type of report? Alumni class. An alumni class analysis only works if you have the alumni module. So it only works for school. But if you were a school and you were going to run that, basically when you're running this report, it's all about the filters part here. You need to make sure that you're selecting the years here. So this alumni code means, this is basically just a constituency code. And you want constituency code to equal alumni. Class year is the class years of the alumni that you want to be able to run. And so those are the 2 that you need to select here. Again, I'm not going to spend too much time on this one because we don't have it's an optional module that only exists for schools. But then in the format tab here under detail, you need to make sure that you're selecting whether or not you want to include totals or individual, and then include non-givers, whether you want to include non-givers there. And then that's it. You hit preview and it'll give you, oh, one more thing. This will give you a summary. So it'll give you each class and the total amount it is that they've given. This one will give you each class, the total amount they've given, and then a list, another report that is a list of who those donors from each class was. So that's the alumni class analysis report. Let's see, we had another one there. We code our campaigns as under proposal name. So you have a campaign that is the name of a proposal? You have a campaign that is the name of a proposal. Um, that sounds like a campaign summary, and that you would bring over that campaign that you want. Technically, that campaign really should be an appeal. Um, oh, yeah, those sound like appeals. It sounds like you're one of those organizations that has confused the purpose of a campaign with a one of an appeal. Right now, the way that you have it coded, I would do a campaign summary and bring over that campaign. So the same as the appeal summary, but you're just bringing over a campaign summary, like the one that we did for the capital campaign, and that one should give you pretty much what it is that you want. It'll give you goal versus actual, number of donors, number of gifts, and so that was that. This was that one here. It was under campaign. It's this one, the campaign summary. From there. So that one should give you an overview, but it would be looking at it for your proposal campaign. To answer a question here, we do phone consultations. Let me just put my email address here. Canada.com. We do phone consultations. We are during summer. During summer is it's an incredibly busy time. So right now, I think we're pretty much booked solid up until like July, until the end of July or August. Um, so it would be hard to give you a specific date. I know we do have availability in August, but we are, yeah, summer is just crazy. We're pretty much hopping from place to place with the things that we have going on. But if you give me the time, I can let you know. And it really depends on where you are as well, because if I'm on the East Coast, I have time at night to work with clients on the West Coast. But if you're on the East Coast too, then it's hard to find availability during the day to kind of answer questions that people have. But again, shoot me an email and let me know kind of what it is that you're looking for, and I can let you know what our availability is. Okay, so I think I was gonna do I was gonna do one more report, right? Okay, let's see. Or did I do it already? Did I do it already? I don't remember. Anyone? Okay, I'll do one more just in case. Let's see here. I'll do a I'll do a consecutive years. Although no, I'm not going to do a consecutive years, so the dashboard won't look. Oh, I will. Fine. Okay. Although it's probably not going to look very good in the sample database here, I promise it'll look really good in your database. Consecutive years shows you the number of consecutive years donors without missing a year. So usually the date range I select is to the last completed calendar or fiscal year. So I'll say up into the last calendar year. I do want to include soft credits, and I do want to include people who are, well, I don't want to include people who are deceased. Then I'm going to go straight to the individual address and see if I need to remove anything. I don't. I'm going to go straight to the Format tab, and I'm going to go to Detail. And here I'm going to say minimum number of consecutive years needs to be, and I'll say 5. I want people who have given for 5 years in a row without missing a year. Then I'm going to go to Sort Break, and I'm going to bring over consecutive years, and I'm going to ask for a break by the number of consecutive years, and hit Preview. Okay, and that's going to, see, I don't have a lot of information in my sample. Let's see, let's try last fiscal year. And see if that's better. No, okay. Let me just hit layout, and it should give us an example of what that report looks like. Okay, so it should look something like this. So you would see the number of years, the number of people in under each one of those years. So if I had said 5, it would show me 5 years, and then everybody who'd been giving 5 years, 7 years, and then everybody who'd be giving 7 years. And the beauty of it is that it shows you the number of consecutive years, the total amount given, and the average that they give per year. So it shows you a lot of those people who are kind of flying under the radar because their annual gift that they give per year is under a certain amount. Like there are people that have been giving for 15 years in a row, but their average gift a year is like $79. So they fly completely under your radar because of that. But those are perfect life insurance policy candidates. Somebody who doesn't have the capacity to give one large gift, but gives consistently without missing a year over a long period of time. So that is your consecutive years report. Okay, so I'm going to open it up to questions. And again, I'm going to unmute you guys. And anyone who has any questions at all, feel free to ask any questions that you have. And if not, then yeah, then thank you so much for participating. And I hope you learned a lot. I hope you all query less, report and use dashboards more as a result of the class. And thanks a lot for taking part. And again, you're unmuted, so if you have any questions or you want to write something in the chat, then I'm going to stay on for another 5 to 10 minutes. And again, I'm going to send you all a video with the recording of the class so that you can watch it. Oh, you're welcome. Thanks. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, guys. Oh, you too. I'm excited for this one. Thank you. Thanks a lot, Tanya. Okay, does anyone have any questions at all? Again, I'll stay on a little bit longer, but if anyone has any questions, just let me know. You can shoot me an email, and I'll be happy to answer them. And, thank you. Oh, perfect. Thanks, Judy. Okay, great. If all right, so I'm gonna end the class now. I'll transfer the video or convert the video and then send you a copy of it as soon as it's uploaded. And again, just let me know if you've got any questions at all. Okay, thanks a lot, guys.